and for your attention to the case that we presented to you, the case of State of Florida versus Tyrone Tucker. Now, in just a few hours, it's going to be your turn to take all this information back to the deliberation room and start your deliberation in this case. You're going to have to determine what you found to be credible and what you found to be not credible. And you will be the ultimate deciders of what evidence you believe and what evidence you don't believe. Now, I hear this a lot in this courtroom. In life, they say the devil is in the detail. And I think no case embodies that more than the case we just presented to you, because the devil really is in the detail in this case. I submit to you that the most credible evidence that you received was the testimony of John Travis Johnson. That is going to be the most credible evidence that you received in this case. And I believe you will come to that determination because of the detail that is involved in that testimony. Now, you got a chance to meet John Travis Johnson. He came in this courtroom, and you met him. He's a pretty simple guy. He's not overly sophisticated. He's obviously struggled since he got out of the military. He's got PTSD issues. He's got some addiction issues. He owned up to all of that. He didn't hide any of that from you. The reason he was in Key West back in 2017, he came here looking for work after the hurricane, and he fell into his old ways, right? He said he met up with some old friends that he used to know out on the beach, started doing drugs with them, started drinking, fell back into his old routine, finds himself living at this warehouse where he makes the acquaintance of this man over here, Tyrone Tucker, and another man, Rory Wilson. And the three of them party together. They party together. And what does that partying involve? Alcohol and drugs. And like all parties, the party ends at some point. They run out of alcohol, they run out of drugs, and they run out of money. So he tells you it's time to figure out a way to get more. So what does he do? What do they do? The three of them get together. Travis told you that Wilson came back from, I believe it was the Burger King, and said, hey, I got some information about this lady over at the Treehouse. She's got drugs, she's got money. We need to do a lick. Let's go over there and hit that. John Travis Johnson said to you, he wanted more drugs. He didn't really want to be involved, but he wanted more drugs. Now, he's got the truck. They need a ride over there. So it makes sense. It's his truck. He's determined to be the one that's going to drive them over there. What's he getting out of the deal? Gas money, and he gets to smoke the take. Who are the other two players in this scenario? Tucker and Wilson. That's what he told you. That makes sense. Now, they get together. He said, he testified, he didn't know anything about the legal theory of principal theory. You're going to get that instruction that I talked about during jury selection. The principal instruction is going to tell you that it's kind of an all for one, one for all scenario. I'll specifically read the instruction a little bit later here, but I want to stay with John Travis Johnson's testimony first. He said he knew nothing about the principal theory, and he knew nothing about this felony murder theory. So, you mean while we're committing a robbery, if somebody ends up getting killed, I could be charged with murder? Yes, sir. It's called felony murder. And that's exactly what happened in this scenario. The three of them hatched this plan to go over to the Treehouse. He gives you great detail about how the plan was hatched. They did a drive-by earlier just to kind of case the joint out. And remember, I told you during jury selection, if a crime's committed at the Basilica, you're going to have nuns and priests for your witnesses, right? Well, the Treehouse is no Basilica, all right? The Treehouse was a flop house, a drug den in the middle of Stock Island. where people were living in a ramshackle structure with no water, no electricity. And what did they do in that place? Drugs, alcohol. Paula Belmont said prostitution. Who knows? It's not the Basilica. So they get this great lead, right? They're going to go over there and do this robbery. So they case the joint. He drives them over there. Or after they get done with the casing, they go back to the warehouse. Tucker puts on dark clothing. Wilson puts on dark clothing. Travis drives them back over. Why should you believe that? It's corroborated. Corroboration is important in this case. That's the detail I'm talking about. Devil in the detail, corroboration. His story, his testimony is evidence. That evidence is corroborated. So he goes over to the treehouse. We saw those videos time and time and time again. You see a flash of the truck first. That's 8 minutes later, I think, 9 minutes later, you see the truck pull up. I'm sorry, I misspoke that. The first drive-by, we didn't see. When they go over there to commit the actual crime, they said there was a car out in front of the treehouse. And you see the truck pull all the way through, and it goes around the block. Truck pulls back up, and you see two guys wearing dark clothing heading from the truck towards the treehouse. Corroboration of what Travis testified to. It corroborates him. Now, Travis is not a manipulative person. I submit to you the manipulative person's this guy over here. That's the master manipulator, not Travis. You saw Travis. He's about as simple as it gets. Travis said he was in the front seat. He saw them go in that gate. A few minutes later, he sees somebody running from the gate. What do we see on the video? Corroboration. Sure enough, we see a man with a flashlight come running out of the gate, up over the hill to CVS. It's exactly what Travis said. After that, we see a guy in dark clothing come running from the direction of the treehouse towards the direction where the truck had dropped him off. Consistent with what Travis said happened that night, that he saw Tucker coming out of the treehouse with this bag in his hand, fumbling with it, right? And he sees him running, and he takes off because he's terrified at this point. Now, Travis says he sees Tucker fumbling with the bag. Who does Roger Ragged say grabbed the bag out of the treehouse? The second person. Who does Paula Belmont say grabbed the bag, her purse, her bag, whatever? The second person. That's consistent with what Travis told you. Travis also said that when Captain Phelps kind of figured it out, he knew the jig was up and it was time to pay the piper. And he said when he saw that, he was shocked. When she laid it out, he was shocked because she had it to a T. Now, she didn't tell him what to say. She laid out the basics of what the investigation had revealed, but Travis filled in all the details about particulars in this plan. Devil in the detail. So, Travis owns up to it. Time to face the music. And he gives his statement back in November of 2017, and he's arrested. And that statement has remained unimpeached to this day. He gave a proffer in 2022. He didn't get a deal until 2022, after he'd been in jail for 4.5 years. That's when the state approached him. Again, we don't pick our witnesses, right? The Basilica, one thing. Treehouse, another. The state approached him and said, we need your testimony. We believe if you're the getaway driver, you're the least culpable. So we'll work with you. And he agreed. And he came in here and he testified today consistently with every other time he testified. Consistently. That's why he should be believed, because he's credible. Now, because it's important that you understand the nature of his testimony, and because I submit to you the abiding belief in his testimony, we've got a PowerPoint here that we put together to kind of highlight why you should believe Travis Johnson.
You want to do it? No, you can reposition yourself so you're able to view the screen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa.
I think it would be preferable if he had a seat there. Well, I think it would be preferable if we can, one of the deputies can help with a seat there, and so I would just prefer that the person making the argument being the only one standing, so thank you.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I did you all a favor. I brought somebody much smarter about these things that was born in a different generation. She will run the computer for me and I will refer to it, okay? So let's talk about Travis's testimony in regards to the sequence of events at the Treehouse. Travis says he drove by once, returned, and he parked past the Treehouse, and Wilson and Tucker got out and walked towards the Treehouse. We see that on the video, the Cosme video. Travis says he saw Wilson and Tucker go through the gate of the Treehouse. I'm sorry, I lost my way. About 5 minutes later, a man that we learned was O'Quinn ran from the Treehouse towards CVS carrying a flashlight. That man yelled for police. Tucker ran towards Travis's truck, but Travis drove off. Travis said he did not see Rory running towards his truck. What corroborates that testimony? The Cosme video corroborates it. Detective Fernandez, who you heard from, testified he saw a truck in the video. Detective Malone, who testified, said, or gave a detailed description of the events that were observed in the Cosme video. She was able to point out the man running towards CVS with the flashlight. And we also see the man running from the Treehouse, who is Franklin Tucker. Now, later on we see, I think they use the word lumbering, because Wilson was described as somebody who would not be capable of running fast because he's a stocky guy. There was about a minute delay before the second person appeared in the video after Tucker is seen running towards the truck. All corroborating Travis's testimony. And folks, let's remember, Travis says when they got in the truck, Wilson had a club and this defendant had a knife. Now, we find Wilson's DNA on the knife. Obviously, if Travis really wanted to tailor his testimony, he had to switch that around. But he's been adamant that's not what it was. It was this defendant that had a knife in his hand, and Wilson had the club. Well, we know Wilson's DNA ends up on the knife. It was a full-on fracas inside that Treehouse. Fists are flying. There's chaos. Roger Raggett told you they were all over the place. Somebody threw him into a tarp. Somebody had him up against a wall or a floor or something. Paula had a guy on top of her. Weapons could have been easily switched around. And those are the only weapons that Travis saw. We don't know if there are other weapons in their pockets. But as far as Travis's testimony towards the sequence of events, it's corroborated by the evidence. Vanessa, let's go to the next one. The map of the route that they took. Travis testified detailed the route taken for the drive-by and for the robbery. You see the video of Travis's confession. He draws the map during his interview with Detective Pitcher and Phelps. Phelps traced the route along the map that was in the wrong direction. Travis corrects her, and he says no. And Travis showed the correct direction on the map. And remember, Travis's interview was before they showed him the videos from Cosme and the Electric Company. This testimony came before he saw those videos. So he wasn't tailoring his testimony to the videos, hadn't seen them yet. Vanessa, could you play the next one? Here's the portion of his interview where he addresses the map.
Okay. So each time you come into this loop, just come straight down 2nd Street. Okay.
No, we came that way. He corrects her. He's not tailoring it to something he hasn't seen yet. Vanessa, let's go to the next one, please. As far as Travis's testimony about Rory wearing the black shorts and the black long sleeve shirt. In Paula's video deposition, 2 different times she describes the person attacking her. And this is the video that you all saw, the perpetuated testimony you saw this week. Yes, he was wearing the same. He was wearing like a dark blue sweatshirt, shorts, and these like shoe boot, black shoe boot things. They were like boot material, but not as high as boots. They were shoes, if that makes sense. Dark blue or black sweatshirt, shorts, and the black shoe things, and a mask, which I didn't realize at first he had a mask on because he jumped right on top of me. Next one. Travis testifies that Rory went into the treehouse to commit the robbery. We see the two guys walking from the truck towards the treehouse, and Travis says he saw them entering the gate. Paula identifies, to corroborate that, you can look to Paula's testimony. She identifies Rory back in 2017 as the person attacking her, and she says it again in her deposition testimony. How do you know that was the person? I knew who it was immediately just by who he was. I mean, the voice, after hearing the voice, there was no doubt in my mind. He was wearing the same clothes and being at the house earlier. That corroborates Travis's testimony. Travis testifies about Tucker wearing long black pants, black shirt, and black boots. That's what he says Tucker was wearing. Let's look to Paula's video deposition. So did you tell the police that you thought the person might be black because the person was wearing black clothing? Wearing all black, yeah. I guess I just associated, I don't know, I guess I originally thought it was a black guy because he was wearing all black and was told it was a white guy. Ma'am, the person was dressed in all black. That's Paula's testimony, which corroborates Travis's. Tucker was wearing all black. That's what Paula identifies the second person as wearing, all black. Next one. Still talking about Travis's testimony about Tucker wearing long black pants, the black shirt, and the black boots. Travis's video confession, he was wearing a pair of black pants and a black shirt and one of those, I guess it's called a neck gaiter, one of those hoodie things. Who was wearing the neck gaiter? Tyrone. I guess it's called a neck gaiter, one of those hoodie things. Next one. All right. We know, neck gaiter was never found. We know that. It was not presented to you. But we also saw a booking photo of this defendant. And a regular mask coming down over your head is not going to cover that long goatee. But a neck gaiter would. Devil's in the detail. Why believe Travis? It makes sense. You pull a neck gaiter up, you cover that big goatee. That's why you believe Travis. It makes sense. It's corroborated. Travis testifies about the black hoodie. He testifies Tucker put on a black neck gaiter around his neck when he got ready to go to the treehouse. In Travis's video, again, I guess it's called a neck gaiter, one of those hoodie things. That's corroborated by Paula. Paula says, all I saw was the back of that person. He was a little smaller. He was a littler, smaller, like not as wide, wearing a black hoodie. I just saw the back of them. They had a dark hoodie on. A dark hoodie and all over sweatshirt, hoodie, and dark pants. She's describing Tucker to a T exactly the same way Travis described him. Corroboration. Corroboration. Next one. More about the neck gaiter that Travis testified to and how it covers Tucker's goatee. Tucker had a black neck gaiter around his neck when he left the warehouse. The word Jägermeister was written all over it. And then Travis showed you how the neck gaiter could be pulled up to hide his neck and face. Again, like I just said, Tucker had this long goatee in 2017. Vanessa, let's play that video. Just right there is fine.
He put on a pair of black pants and black shirt. One of the things, I guess it's called a neck gaiter. Okay. Who had the neck gaiter? Tyrone. Okay. He's got a beard. Okay.
He described him to a T. He's got a beard this long. You saw the beard. Neck gaiter covers it up. And this was all done. They didn't tell Travis anything about a Jägermeister neck gaiter. Phelps didn't say anything about that. Those were details that Travis provided to them. They didn't give him his narrative. He gave them his narrative. Tucker's before Travis described them. Next one, Beth, please. All right, here's Travis's testimony about the mask. This is the mask that Wilson had on, the demon mask. Most evil, most horrible demon mask you can basically describe. It's the mask that Wilson was wearing when he came out of the warehouse. Detective Malone testified the mask was found in a boat near the treehouse. Roger Raggett testified the two men were wearing skull masks. Roger Raggett says they had some kind of masks on. It corroborates what Travis was saying. It corroborates what Paula was saying. Vanessa, let's play that video.
Did you see Detroit do anything with like a racket or anything? I think he had it just look like a what you could beanie, a hoodie thing. Okay. And a freaking mask. What the mask look like? Demon. Okay. Like when you say demon, I see you say, tell me what it's like. That's sharp teeth. Okay. Almost like a dinosaur-ish type. Okay. Looking thing.
He said, looks like a demon with sharp teeth. You all remember this mask, right? Teeth don't get much sharper than they are in this mask. Why believe Travis? The evidence corroborates what he said. He described a demon mask with sharp teeth. Nobody gave him that description. Phelps didn't feed him that. Nope, those are details that Travis gave. I'm sorry, ladies, thank you. Those are details that Travis gave to them. Those are not details they gave to Travis. The defendant wanted to say that they gave Travis his narrative. No, they didn't. Travis gave his own narrative. Travis gave details on the mask, and it's 100% identical to the mask he identified here in court. Thank you. Next one. Travis testified about the knife that he saw in Tucker's hands. He says Tucker had a knife in his hand. I could see it in his hand. He was carrying it when he came out of the warehouse. When he came out of the warehouse getting ready to go over to the treehouse for the hit. What corroborates that testimony? We found a knife in a planter box in the yard of a neighbor on November 18th, the day after the murder. This person lived at the Water's Edge trailer park. That's where they testified they found, Devalier testified that's where they found the mask. Water's Edge trailer park on 2nd Street, the direct route from the treehouse to the warehouse. So they found the knife on the direct route from the treehouse to the warehouse, the knife that Travis described to a T in court and to the detectives. Devalier identified the photographs of the knife while he was on the stand. That corroborates Travis's testimony. He saw Tucker with a red and black knife with two edges. That's the knife that was found on the path back to the warehouse. Next one. Still talking about the knife, he gave them details of the knife. Vanessa, let's play that video, please.
Now, when they got their stuff, when you said they got their stuff, what did they bring to the trunk to go do the work? What did they bring? He got his mask and their clothes and the gloves. Okay. And I think Kai had a razor knife or not a razor knife, but a diet knife. But just like the kind you strap to your leg? Yeah. Okay. Was it in a sheet or just a knife by itself? It was in a sheet. Okay. What color was the sheet? Black.
What about, was it blue, green, yellow, pink,
Red.
all red,
With black.
with black end? Could you like the handle, the blade with red and the hand black? Okay. And then the handle was black and red?
Blade was stainless steel, handle was black and red. He also has a knife collection. He wasn't hiding that from anybody.
Anything else about that you can think of? Anything else about you think it's got the black and then handle? Is it
There's a third red, so it's still more areas that locked it in.
was it anything else like on the inside or on the outside?
And you had to Travis sheet with a strap on it, or strap something like that? It didn't have straps. Okay, just a plastic, like a hard plastic sheet, okay.
corroborates Travis's testimony. And lo and behold, how did Matthew Bonnet die? Stab wounds to his back. What blood was on the knife? The confirmatory blood was Wilson. But the defendant's DNA could neither be included or excluded. And you heard the DNA analyst, just because she can't say it's included or excluded doesn't mean he didn't touch the knife. I think when David held up a pen, does this automatically mean my DNA is on the pen? No, it doesn't automatically mean that. It could. What she said was, if there's not enough DNA in the profile for the test, then she can't make a conclusive finding one way or the other. So she never said his DNA wasn't on the knife. She said it was inconclusive. But she was able to conclude Wilson's DNA was on the knife. That knife very easily could have been passed around. For all we know, Tucker stabbed Bonnet and Wilson picked the knife up afterwards. Or the other way around, we don't know. And you know what? Under the principal theory and under felony murder, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who wielded the knife in there. We don't have to prove who wielded the knife. Because under principal theory, you're all in it together. Travis is just as guilty of that stabbing sitting in that truck outside. Folks, the principal theory, I always liken it to if 5 guys stomp a person to death. You don't have to prove which stomp actually killed the person. You're all 5 in it, you're all 5 doing it, the person died. Okay? Here, they're all engaged in the commission of this crime. That they all had the intention that crime be committed. We don't have to prove to you who actually stabbed Matthew Bonnet. What we did have to prove to you is that Matthew Bonnet did get stabbed during this altercation, and that those stab wounds caused his death. And I submit to you, we have proven that. But as far as who did the stabbing on the inside, we don't have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt who did it, because we don't know. Roger Raggett doesn't know, Paula Belmont doesn't know, and Matthew Bonnet's not here to tell us. Next slide, please. Oh, before we leave that one, Dr. Steckbauer confirmed that it was stab wounds to the back. I think that's pretty much all we need to go from that one. That's fine, Vanessa. We can go to the next one. Thank you. Travis testified about Tucker and Wilson going through the gate of the treehouse. He saw them go in. Paula testified 2 people came up the stairs of the treehouse. Roger testified 2 people came upstairs. Roger testified the second guy was taller and skinnier than the guy attacking Paula. The guy attacking Paula, I think she referred to him at one point in time as a 250-pound gorilla, is what she said. And she said she couldn't see much other than that because he was on top of her. It corroborates Travis's testimony. Next one. Wilson was upstairs in the treehouse. How do we know Wilson made it upstairs? Travis saw Tucker and Wilson go into the treehouse. Paula testified the 2 people came up. Roger testified 2 people came up. Paula testified she knew the first guy. She knew him the minute he came up there. He knew him as Detroit. He'd been around the treehouse before. Had a very distinctive voice. Roger said he was familiar with the guy attacking Paula because of his sways. I believe what he was trying to say was swagger. Because of his swagger. He knew the guy's style, walk, the way he moved and talked. He didn't know the guy's name, but he'd just seen him around the treehouse and other places. That corroborates the fact that Wilson was upstairs in the treehouse, which is what Travis said. He saw him go in the gate. Next page, Vanessa. How do we know Tucker was upstairs in the treehouse? Again, Travis saw Tucker go through the gate with Wilson heading into the treehouse. During the recross of Roger Raggett, the defendant raised his hand way above his head and said, now this guy that was attacking you, would you tell me how tall he is? And Roger Raggett, who I submit to you, you're not going to get that guy to say anything that he doesn't believe in. He said, no, not that high. Bring it down, bring it down. Your height. About your height is what he said. About your height. And when I got up and asked him, did you say the second subject was Tucker's height? Yeah, I just said that. It corroborates what Travis said. The 2 went in that gate and into the treehouse. Roger Raggett corroborates that testimony. Next one. Oh, we're there. Sorry, Vanessa. You're anticipating. The snuff can. Travis testified that when they were all back at the warehouse, Wilson took a snuff can out. It was round, like a Copenhagen snuff jar or can, whatever you want to call it. Took it out of his pocket. And he did this upstairs while they were at the warehouse. What corroborates that? Roger Raggett said the man kept telling Paula, give it up, give me the money and drugs. And Roger told Paula, just give it up, it's not worth getting poked over, was what he testified to. And according to Roger, Paula said, take it. And she pointed to a little container on a little container, and the guy took it. A little container. Consistent with what Travis says Wilson produced back at the warehouse. Devil's in the detail. Travis is telling you the truth. Next page. The backpack belonged to Paula. Travis said he saw Tucker running out of the treehouse, fumbling with this backpack, and stuff was spilling out all over the place. He also testified that Tucker showed up at the warehouse with the backpack and emptied the contents out to see what they got. What corroborates that? Well, Detective Malone testified the backpack was found in an air handler closet up in Big Pine, and it had Paula's EBT card in it. She also said the other items in the backpack were hers. They were like women's items, notepads, or something else. Why was it up there with Travis? Travis told you. He was unpacking the footlocker that this defendant helped him pack when he was leaving the warehouse. Did that footlocker ever leave your sight? Yeah, it did. It was never in my exclusive control. Well, how'd you get it out of the warehouse? Tucker helped me. You think Travis is sophisticated enough to make that detail up? Tucker helped me. He gets up to Big Pine, and what does he find in the footlocker? The backpack. So what does he do? He throws in the closet. Out of sight, out of mind. Next one. Contents of the backpack we covered. Travis testified. Women's stuff, feminine effects, pens, notepads, trinkets, stuff to a female. Paula's video, she says, my keys, my jewelry, my perfume, a little pink purse, all women's things that have little witches on it. Detective DeValle testified he found a $100 bill, change, personal items like makeup, items that appeared to be from a woman's purse scattered on the ground outside of the treehouse. That's consistent with what Travis says. I saw him fumbling with the bag and stuff was emptying out of it. What does Detective DeValle find? Women's things that are consistent with what Travis just told you. Why believe Travis? The evidence supports his testimony. It's consistent. Next one. Travis said, I saw Tucker running down the street fumbling with this bag. Paula corroborates that. All I saw that second person doing was I saw him like this through the side of my body because I had someone on top of me. He was grabbing my backpack, opening up my backpack, consistent with what Travis said Tucker was doing when he came out of the treehouse. It supports Travis's testimony. Why believe it? It's corroborated. I'm sorry, but that's the next one. Still talking about Travis's testimony about Tucker running down the street. Paula's video deposition, which you saw, you did. It was your backpack. Is that correct? Yes. And who took it from you? The other person, not Rory. She'd identified Rory as the one on top of her. No, ma'am. It was the white guy. I can't say it was the white guy. I originally thought it was a black guy because he was wearing all black. And I was told it was a white guy. I don't know who took it. I know it wasn't Rory Wilson. Consistent with Travis seeing that Tucker coming out of the treehouse, fumbling with the bag. Yes, ma'am. Next one. Paula also says, I saw the second man with my backpack, and I saw him with the billy club, but I couldn't see Roger because Detroit was blocking my view. And at this point, I remember Paula kept describing this long item. It looks like now she sees a billy club with the man that's with Roger. Roger testified that man had a knife to his throat. We certainly know that something was to his throat. Now, could have been both, could have been one or the other. Doesn't matter. Next one. Travis testified that the $50 they gave him for the gas money smelled like perfume. That's completely consistent with what Paula said. Travis said it smells like perfume. Paula said, I think I had a brand new bottle of Dare perfume and some other items. And lo and behold, the money that nobody fed Travis that detail. Travis caught that detail up his narrative. It wasn't Penny Phelps's narrative. Don't be misled by that. It is Travis gave the details. Penny Phelps laid out the basics of what the investigation showed, but Travis filled in these blanks. Next one, please.
How were the bills? 20, 10s, 5s, 20, and 5s, okay. And they smelled like perfume, I remember that. The money smelled like perfume.
Okay, next one. Travis says Tucker was upset with him. That makes sense. Of course he's upset with him. Came running out of the treehouse looking for the getaway car, and the getaway car took off. That shouldn't be hard to understand. Travis gets back to the warehouse. Tucker's mad at him. Travis says, I went for a walk to get cigarettes, just to take a break, walk away from that. You saw the Florida Keys Electric video. You see Travis walking along by himself, and then he comes back after he said he'd run into Rory Wilson. He comes back walking with somebody else. And he says, I ran into Rory Wilson when I went to buy those cigarettes. And that's consistent with what we see in the video. We see him walking to the CVS on his own, or the Tom Thumb, I'm not sure which one they're going to, on his own to get cigarettes. He comes back with somebody walking next to him. And remember, Travis gave this statement before he saw those videos. So he's not tailoring his statement to the videos. He gave that statement before they showed him the videos. When he saw the videos, remember, he said he was shocked that they had him on video. Again, why believe Travis? Devil in the detail. Next one, Vanessa, please. He confessed in November of 2017. He had no deal on the table, no promise, no anything. He's been consistent ever since. You saw the video of his confession. He testified here in court. Once he decided to fess up, remember when he said the jig was over? He gave the details on the plan and the execution and the aftermath of that murder in 2017. After that, he said they asked him to look at videos. And yeah, he said when he saw the videos, he initially identified himself and he kind of vacillated because he was scared. He thought, God, they have video of me too. He was shocked to see that. I submit to you that's sincere. That is believable testimony from Travis. Next one. Travis testified he did not know about this treehouse until the incident. He didn't even know where the treehouse was, and he'd never been there. All right? What corroborates that? Well, Paula actually corroborates that. In Paula's video deposition, she's asked, and you saw this. This is the perpetuated testimony. You saw this yesterday. Do you know Travis Johnson? No, not personally, no. Prior to the date of this incident, you never hung out with him? No. Associated with him? No. I don't know. Oh, have you ever even met John Johnson? I don't know how to answer that because he might have been the person that was there with Detroit, but I don't know for sure. Other than that, the only time I ever saw him was in the newspaper and, you know, here. Have you ever identified him? No, sir. As that person? No. Next page. Have you ever seen John Travis Johnson with Matthew Bonnet? No, sir. Have you ever seen him with Crystal? No. Have you ever seen him with Roosevelt? No. Have you ever seen him with O'Quinn? No. Have you ever seen him hanging out with any of your friends? No. Have you ever personally seen him at the treehouse? No. It corroborates Travis when he says, I didn't even know where it was. I've never been there before. Paul is basically saying, I don't know who he is. He's never been over there. It corroborates Travis's testimony. Next one. Okay, now let's go to the next one. Paula's all over the place. Some of her testimony, she seems to get right. She starts in 2017, and you saw the hospital video yesterday. She was at the hospital the night of the attack, and she's adamant. I can't identify that second person. At one point, I think she gets upset with Officer Malone, and she says, lady, I told you this 3 times. I can't ID him. I had a 250-pound gorilla on top of me beating the shit out of me. That was what she said. She couldn't say anything about the second guy. Now, this is interesting. Paula testified that in the very few days right after the incident, they were at McDonald's on November 22nd. It's about, 4 or 5 days after this incident. And the defendant testified to this yesterday. I saw Paula at McDonald's. We weren't friends, but we knew each other. I was feeling so bad and so sorry for myself for being interrogated for this thing all night. And he's scared, and he's feeling sorry for himself, I guess. And I remember seeing Paula. This is his testimony. I remember seeing Paula, and she had a bandage on her neck from the knife, right? And I remember seeing her, and I was just like, all of a sudden, I felt like, well, I'm trying not to curse, but I felt really bad. Here I am feeling sorry for myself, and then I see her. That was his testimony. Next one, Vanessa. Paula's deposition back in May of 2019. This would be, about 2 years, almost 2 years after the event. Actually, he himself, Tucker, told me that when we were at McDonald's, he himself told me, oh, the police found a knife with blood on it. Because I said, oh, good, it would be my blood. And he said, no, it's Matt's. That confirmatory test didn't come from FDLE until months, years later. So how did he know that was going to be Matt's blood on the knife? He told Paula 4 days after the event. He told me they found a knife, and I said, oh, good, that'll have my blood on it. And he said, no, not going to be your blood, it's going to be Matt's blood. If he was passed out from his Red Balls or atom bombs or fireballs back at the warehouse, how does he know about that? How does he know Matt's blood's going to be on that knife? Because he was there. He knows where that knife went. It went into Matt's back. That's how he knows. He knows that knife is not the one that was used on Paula. He knows that knife is the one that was used on Matthew Bonnet. Remember, he brought the knife to that event. Travis saw the knife in his possession. So he confirms to Paula, no, that's going to be Matt's blood. And then she said, whether that was true or not, I don't know. He himself told me that while we were sitting at McDonald's, that the knife that the police found had Matt's blood. That's a quote from her answer. She said it at least twice. She was not mistaken about what she remembered him saying. And that's very telling. That's huge. Because nobody would have known. Even the detectives didn't know it was Matt Bonnet's blood on that knife at that point in time.
I'll sustain the objection to the extent, remember folks, this is closing argument. Your decision and verdict is based upon the evidence in the law. And the counsel's giving a closing, which is not evidence. So with that, you can proceed.
Folks, you heard the testimony from Angela, our DNA expert. That's when we got the confirmatory results of the blood on the knife. That was long after, 4 days after this was a year, at least several months after the event. Tucker's telling Paula 4 days after the event whose blood is on the knife. Nobody knows that, sir, except the people that were there. Next one. Okay. Nobody would know that except the people that were there, and that's huge. Now, the defendant took the stand, and he's been wrongly charged with this. That was his story. If you boil down his whole testimony, he started partying during Fantasy Fest, and the party never ended. He said this is usually what he does this time of year, and on the day of this, he remembers drinking these fireballs and got so hammered he fell asleep, woke up, police were everywhere. He remembers details that are, for somebody that was that drunk, he remembers the details of coming down the steps with his hands up back when they committed the raid. He remembers bits and pieces of conversations, but for the most part, he was watching his friend's room, drinking, and passed out. He remembers going to buy cigarettes. He throws that in there. He said he remembered feeling so bad for Paula at McDonald's. Didn't testify that he told her whose blood was on the knife. Again, how would he know that? Why did we put on the DNA analyst? Why did we put? Because we wanted you to know we did our jobs. We did our investigation. We submitted items for DNA testing. Sometimes you get results, sometimes you don't. On this particular submission, we got a result, a positive result for Wilson on the knife, and we got a slew of unconfirmed, can either say yes or no as a result, as it regards Tucker.
45 minutes.
45 minutes in, Judge?
Yes.
Very well. Now, a couple of excerpts I want to underscore from late yesterday. And again, I got a good time slot today, fresh in the morning. Yesterday afternoon, I got up here and I read into the record statements that Paula had made during her deposition in May of 2019. And I want to do that timeline for you. So the event happened in November of 2017. And she's adamant, can't see this other person, had this big guy on top of me, just couldn't see him, stop asking me that, I've answered this 5 times. Now we're in May of 2019. She's still saying she can't ID the second person. I can't ID him. Not that I can identify. I saw another person, but I can't identify him. Can you describe him? No, because I had Rory Wilson on top of me. You initially said you believe the second person had a billy club. I think that was Rory. Did you see the second person with any weapons? I don't know. I couldn't see the second person until they were going down the steps towards Matt because I had Rory Wilson on top of me. Do you remember what the second person was wearing? Dark clothing, corroborating what Travis said. You heard him say, I think we killed him. Now, she also talked about the McDonald's event. You recall seeing him at McDonald's? Did you know he had anything to do with it? No, ma'am, I did not, because I didn't know whether he had anything to do with it. I didn't even know that they all lived together. She didn't know about all that. Well, who told you he had something to do with it? Nobody told me. The police didn't tell you? Well, after they arrested him, yes. But not when I was having lunch at McDonald's, or I would have been nowhere near him. This was 4 days after. Are you sure he was involved? What kind of question is that? I told you I can't identify him. The person was wearing a mask. I can't say he had anything to do with it, and I can't identify him as being there one way or the other. Can't say he was there, can't say he wasn't there. And she goes on to say, actually, he himself told me at McDonald's that the police had found the knife with blood on it, and that's when he told me it was Matt's blood. He told me that while we were sitting at McDonald's. The knife that the police found had Matt's blood. Then there was a litany of questions about the scuffle between Roger and his assailant, which would be this defendant. Roger got thrown into a tarp. This is Paula's testimony. Remember what Roger testified to? I got thrown into some kind of a tarp. Paula says, I don't believe I said he was beating him. I was the one getting beaten. They had a scuffle, and you saw the second person holding a knife to Roger's throat? No, I didn't see that. You were told that? I was told that by Roger. That's why Roger wasn't helping me. Roger told her that the guy had a knife to his throat. These are all corroborating bits of evidence from Paula that corroborate Travis's statements. Again, the devil is in the detail. Now, Paula also makes a comment that at some point, Paula testified that a small knife fell from somewhere during the struggle. She thought it was Roger's knife, and she thought about grabbing it. So there was a second knife. One was on Paula's neck, and she saw another knife fall, a smaller knife fall. She thought it was Roger's knife, and she thought about grabbing it. So Paula herself introduces a second knife into this fracas inside the treehouse. The defendant grilled Officer Malone about her demotion from major crimes. Her demotion was not a demotion per se. She stepped down. The recommendation was she stepped down because she didn't want to do that work anymore. This was 2 years later. There was no finding that the evidence in this case had been tampered with, altered, tailored, or fabricated. No evidence of that.
Okay, well, I'm going to overrule the objection, and again, this is argument, as I've explained. So.
No evidence of that. Malone testified she committed some policy violations, but that evidence itself had not been tampered, compromised, or manufactured, and there was no finding that it was. The DNA evidence, again, inconclusive for this defendant. Where was it inconclusive as for Tucker? On the blunt end of the knife, the right side of the forehead of the mask, inside wrist area of the shirt, and the black glove. Doesn't mean he didn't touch these items, just means they didn't have enough in the DNA profile to make that comparison. Mr. Tucker also called Travis a free man. You saw Travis. You saw him in the video. Travis is forever marked by what he got involved in here. He owns up to it. He'll wear it for the rest of his life. He's not a free man. He's a convicted felon, convicted of pretty serious charges. These will follow him, and he knows that. You saw him in the video. He was crying. He was upset. He was struggling because the gravity of what he had gotten himself involved in was setting in. Why believe Travis? I submit to you, you believe him because he's being truthful. Paula, you saw her on the night of the event, November of 2017. You've heard statements from her depo in May of 19. At some point in there, she does a trip to California because she's posting pictures of it. And now, at the perpetuated testimony in September and November of 20, now she's adamantly saying in her cross, it's not Tucker, it's not Tucker, it's not Tucker. Not until September of 20 does that come out. What changed from the night of the event to May of 2019 to September of 20? We know she was friends with the defendant's wife on Facebook. She mentioned that. They were talking up to 20 times a day. Paula went from living homelessly in a flop house to a trip to California.
Okay, I'm going to overrule the objection.
Living in a flop house for homeless people with no water and no electric, to posting pictures of her trip to California. And then she appears for her perpetuated testimony and says, it's not the defendant. It's not Tucker. Tucker wasn't the second guy. I can't say who it was, but it wasn't him. When she, at one point, told Officer Malone, I answered this question 5 times. I couldn't see him. I can't tell you. I can't even tell you if he was there or if he wasn't there. I didn't see enough of him. Now, new testimony. I submit you should take that testimony very cautiously, and you should reject it because it's simply not truthful. It has been tainted. Now, Law School 101, you're going to get a packet of jury instructions. You're going to get a packet of jury instructions that's going to give you all the law that pertains to this case. You're going to hear that the defendant was charged with first-degree felony murder because during the commission of a robbery, somebody died. The state has to prove that somebody died. I think that's fairly clean. That came from Dr. Steckbauer. Matthew Bonnet is dead. While engaged in the commission of a robbery, Tucker caused the death of Matthew Reed Bonnet. And then it's either or for the next element. Tyrone Tucker was the person who actually killed Matthew Reed Bonnet, or Matthew Reed Bonnet was killed by a person other than Franklin Tucker, but both Franklin Tucker and the person who killed Matthew Reed Bonnet were principals in the commission of the robbery. Principals in the commission of the robbery. I submit to you this defendant has been proven guilty of felony murder. You're also going to get what the law calls, hard to explain, lesser included charges. Okay? Basically what that's telling you is if you don't feel that the evidence has proven the crime that's been charged, you could go down one level to what they call a lesser included crime. So for instance, on the first degree murder, a lesser included crime of first degree murder would be second degree murder. So if you don't feel that the state has proven felony first degree murder, you can consider second degree murder. For second degree murder? Hold up, it's a lot here. Second degree murder, the state has to prove that Matthew Bonnet is dead, the death was caused by the criminal act of Franklin Tyrone Tucker, and there was an unlawful killing of Matthew Reed Bonnet by an act imminently dangerous to another and demonstrating a depraved mind without regard for human life. Just so you know, the principal instruction carries to every charge. The principal instruction carries to every charge, and I'm going to read the principal instruction, except these are smudged again. There we go. Let me read the principal instruction to you. This is the law the judge is going to advise you need to follow. If the defendant helped another person or persons attempt to commit a crime, the defendant commit or attempt to commit a crime, the defendant is a principal and must be treated as if he had done all the things the other person or persons did. If the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt the following. Number one, the defendant intended the crime to occur. And number two, the defendant did some act or said something that was intended to and that did incite, cause, encourage, assist, or advise the other person or persons to actually commit or attempt to commit the crime. To be a principal, the defendant does not have to be present when the crime is committed. Judge, I would just ask if the defendant can return to the defense table. I'm not using any more video.
Okay, fair enough.
That principal instruction runs to every single crime. The defendant intended for the crime to occur. Did he intend for the robbery to occur? Of course he did. Of course he did. Did he act or say something that was intended to and that did incite, cause, encourage, assist, or advise the other person or persons to actually attempt to commit the crime or to actually commit the crime? Sure he did. He got in the truck that day, loaded for bear, went over to the treehouse, got out, went in with Wilson, committed the crime, active participant. He's a principal to everything that happens. So was Travis. Travis was a principal. To be a principal, the defendant does not even have to be present when the crime is committed. And I asked Travis, if you'd have known, did you know anything about principal or felony murder? He said, no, I didn't. Would you have ever gotten involved in this? Never, if I'd have known that. Is he remorseful? It doesn't matter. I submit that he is, but his testimony is supported by the evidence. Now, just a few more. Judge, how am I doing on time?
60 minutes, day 59.
Okay. You know, this is a minor point, but in the Cosme videos, the defendant spent a lot of time going over the glare or the light in the front. If you watch the video, that glare never leaves that spot. That glare is coming from another location. If you watch the video, you can see the truck advance through that frame. When the truck advances through, there is a flash of light that I submit is the headlights of that truck, but the video speaks for itself, and you folks will be more than free to watch that video as many times as you would like. All the evidence will be going back with you to the jury room, so you'll have a chance to review everything. Paula testified that a small knife fell from somewhere. She thought it was Roger's knife. So there was a second knife involved, one on her throat, and the other one she saw fall that she thought was Roger's. Only one knife was recovered, but there is talk of two knives being involved in that fracas at the treehouse that resulted in Matthew Bonnet's stabbing. Folks, at this time, I submit to you that Travis Johnson has been proven to be credible over and over again. His testimony is corroborated by other testimony and by other videos and other pieces of evidence, the knife, the mask. Why should you believe him? Because he's corroborated. The devil is in the detail here. Paula, generally speaking, testifies to a lot. The biggest change in Paula's testimony is her transition from not able to identify anything to it's not Tucker. And they're such good friends now that you saw pictures where he was laying in her hospital bed. She's supposed to got an infectious disease, and he's laying there with his tongue hanging out, no mask on. That tells you the kind of friendship they have now. Roger Raggett, I submit to you, no one's going to tell that man to say anything that doesn't exist. I smoke, I drink, I think it was Bud Lights. I drink my Bud Lights, and I smoke crack when I can. I go over to Paula's. Paula sells it at the Treehouse. Who supplies the party favors? She does. I don't bring it. But he goes over there and smokes her crack, smokes her weed. That's what he's been doing for how many years? And mowing lawn at the golf course. That's who he is. But his testimony corroborates Travis, and it corroborates Paula. I submit that Roger Raggett, completely believable. Is he the kind of guy you would normally see in your walk of life? Maybe not, probably not. That doesn't mean he can't come in here and be truthful. That goes for all these witnesses. They might not be the kind of people you want at your Thanksgiving table. I don't know. But you're not here to judge their personal choices. You're here to judge the credibility of what they're telling you happened. And I submit to you that Travis Johnson, credible. Roger Raggett, credible. Paula, hit and miss. At the end of the day, when you go back there and you talk about this testimony and you watch these videos and you, by the way, you're allowed to read back on anything. If there's something that you would like to hear again, you can ask the judge to do that. You can ask the judge for whatever it is that will aid in your deliberations. You're free to communicate that with the court, and the court will do what they can to abide by your wishes. But at the end of the day, I submit to you that we have proven this case well beyond and to the exclusion of a reasonable doubt. And I'm going to ask you to go back to that jury room and don't be afraid to find this defendant guilty and hold him accountable for what he did that night in November of 2017 to Matthew Bonnet, to Paula Belmont, to Roger Raggett. Folks, I thank you.
Members of the jury, you're going to hear the defendant's closing argument in just a moment. I want to explain to you our schedule. I think it's important you understand why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. I would like to have all the closings finished before the lunch break. It's going to mean that we're going to have a little later lunch than what we're accustomed to, but I think it's important for there to be continuity and not have any major breaks between one argument and another. So we'll be taking a bit of a later lunch. When you get back from lunch, then you'll hear the closing instructions and you'll have the case for your deliberations. What I'd like to do at the moment is to give you a 5-minute break. This is in the jury room. If anyone just needs to stretch or use the facilities, we'll give you an opportunity before we go into another closing. So take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back to hear the defendant's closing. All right, so that means 11:40. We'll be back, and we'll have just 5 minutes, 6 minutes. 11:40. Sounds good. We'll return. Everybody's back. Assume we got all the jurors in the jury room. Yes, sir. Bring them in, please. So everybody can be seated. We'll just wait for the remaining juror and make ourselves comfortable. Thank you. Please be seated, everyone. Welcome back to the courtroom, members of the jury. Now the opportunity for the defendant to make closing argument. Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Okay.
Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. First, let me apologize to start off here. As you can see, I'm noticeably irritated, angry, upset. And there's a good reason why. Mr. Mansfield up here corroborated, pounded that into your heads, right? Again, all Travis corroborated was his own story. That's it. He literally, all those details that he just handed out to you, the drawing the map, the I said this, I did that, all this stuff. Yeah, somebody who's there who did the crime could actually tell you all those things. Makes sense. And he's saying that's the only thing that makes sense is that Travis is actually, believable. Okay, well, when I put myself on the stand yesterday, Mr. Mansfield didn't impeach my testimony once. Not once. Did he say, prove that I lied anywhere in there? Then he goes ahead and he corroborates my testimony by saying, oh, you told the investigators the same thing 6 years ago. Yes, I did. And why I'm upset? 6 years ago. And after 6 years, the state comes up here with Travis said. That's why I'm here, right? That's what it boils down to. And, I got to say, yes, I am upset. I'm literally sick to my stomach right now.
Objection, Judge, to the improper argument.
Well, I will overrule the objection. If you're sick and need to take a break, sir, I'll certainly give you an opportunity.
I meant I'm sick, because I had to sit there and listen to this.
Okay.
Again, Mr. Mansfield even says in his argument, in his closing argument, 2 guys. That's what all the evidence says. That's what it said from the beginning. Go back to the corroboration. Again, Cosme video doesn't corroborate Travis's story. Even Detective Fernandez, who he brings up, says corroborates Travis's story, right? No, he doesn't. He says, when I asked him, can you see anybody in the truck? Can you see anybody, a getaway driver, sitting in the truck? Fernandez says no. You can't see anybody sitting in the truck. We went over that ad nauseum, right? Nobody's sitting in the truck, so that doesn't corroborate Travis's story. Do you see 2 people getting out of where the truck was? Sure. But what's to say that wasn't Travis? How does that end up being me? That the prosecutor never says. Not once does he say how that becomes me. Anyway, so let's go on from there. We've got, Malone. Detective Malone. Now, here's the thing, another point that was making me very ill. The prosecution went ahead and they made sure that you didn't hear about the investigation. how it went.
Objection, Judge, improper argument.
And I will sustain that objection.
Okay? So, anyway, let's go here. I came here. I was living, right? I live in Oregon. That's where I live now. I didn't try and hide from this thing. I came here of my own free will, hopped on a plane, came down to Key West, right? Yeah, as Mr. Mansfield suggested, my wife is a multimillionaire. That's true. Absolutely. I could be standing in front of you with slick lawyers, you know, that kind of thing.
Objection, Judge. Improper argument.
I will overrule the objection.
Can we come sidebar?
Yes.
And look, I put myself before you guys, and almost every piece of evidence the prosecution wanted to put in, I let them. I didn't object. Go ahead, put it in. Go ahead, put it in. Why? Because not any of that says I did anything. None of it. Now, he wants to go to the DNA results, and they want to use inconclusive as a positive, right? That's what they're trying to do. Now, inconclusive means exactly that, inconclusive. And then, to boot, when he starts, talking about the sweatshirt and the gloves, these are things that weren't even recovered from the crime scene, don't have anything to do with the crime as far as we know, right? They were recovered from the warehouse, that's true, somewhere's in there in the warehouse. They didn't put those into evidence. Those weren't found at the crime scene. They weren't found to have the victim's blood or DNA or anything like that on them. They're found to be in the warehouse. Again, that means nothing. Going back to it again, you're looking at this, okay, what is it? Let's see. Oh, yeah, so he wants to say, again, Travis's story is corroborated, right, again. The weapons, we go down to the weapons. Travis says, a pipe and a knife. Roger Ruggett, who he said is very believable, very credible, right? Okay, he says 2 knives. That's what he says. Now, Paula does say something about a smaller knife later. That's true. And yes, she believes it's to be Roger Ruggett's, not one of the ones that was brought to the scene. And again, it was never put into evidence as something being found at the scene. So, okay, again, it's just trying to confuse and literally trying to dilute your minds with things that don't mean anything. None of this means anything. I go over, and I was looking at all the witnesses that they brought, right? All these witnesses. Okay, yes, Dr. Speckbauer comes in and says that knife killed Matthew Bonnet, right? Okay, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that at all. But what says I'm carrying that knife? What says that I'm using that knife? Nothing, right? That just says that, that knife was used to kill Matthew Bonnet, right? Okay, they bring the DNA expert. DNA expert says, you don't find my DNA anywhere on any item, anything that has to do with this crime. Again, the best they can pull out is the inconclusive on some things that weren't even found in the crime scene. Now, again, I'm not trying to mislead anybody. I'm telling you guys, like I said, I put let them put in what they want, let them put up the testimony they want, anything they wanted. And this is the best they have. After 6 years, and yes, I'm angry. I'm not going to say I'm not. That would be a lie too. I get up there, and I'm looking at this, didn't happen, didn't need to, all right, hold on. Oh, yeah, here we go. This is another one. Talks about corroboration. The clothes. I want to go back to the clothes that people were wearing. Travis's story. He takes us back to the warehouse. We go upstairs. We change into dark clothing. That's what he said. That's what he testified to. Paula, on the other hand, testifies that Rory Wilson's wearing the same clothes, and he actually uses this in his PowerPoint, that Paula testifies, wearing the same clothes she saw him in earlier that day. So where did he change clothes? Again, where'd that happen? Because if he's wearing the same clothes he's wearing that afternoon, then why isn't he in different clothes? Because Travis said he went up and changed. So how's that corroborated? It's not. Again, and then you talk about Travis's testimony, matching the other witnesses, matching the other evidence that's in this case, right? Travis tries to put the knife in my hand. Well, the DNA says differently. Now, again, how do you explain, again, you can say that, oh, well, he may have used gloves. Well, okay, no, again, Travis, he says he doesn't see anybody put on gloves. Nobody else says that either. Okay, so how does that happen? If the knife is in my hand and I'm committing a crime with it, it should have my DNA on it. That's that simple. They use that, for that crime. Again, and then go back to the felony murder thing and the whole idea of, you have to, it doesn't matter whether you participated or whether or not that you participated, that you actually killed the person. Well, he can't even prove any of that. You can't prove I was there. You can't prove that I actually committed any crime, that I actually did anything, that I even discussed a crime with them. He can't even prove that. He can't prove one element of his case, not one. We'll talk about somebody who's being misleading, somebody who's trying to hide things. Okay, he wants to talk about, okay, the conversation I had at McDonald's with Paula, right? And how, I discussed how I had the knife. And not how I had the knife, but how I knew the knife was, it was Matt's blood on the knife, right? But then he doesn't want me to tell you about what interrogators talked to me about when I was down being grilled all night. What they actually told me.
Judge, I'm going to object. Can we come sidebar?
Yeah, okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, again, you'll have to forgive me. It's upsetting.
Keep your voice up, please.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Yeah, I went down to the station. I was there all night. You have to, again, I can't tell you how the interrogation or the interview went. I can't tell you what they told me. I can't tell you anything about that. Which again, it is very frustrating, not to be able to provide you with any of that information. I wish I could. And again, Mr. Mansfield also alluded to, nothing being tampered with, nothing, being was it mishandled or whatever. Again, I'm not allowed to talk about that.
Judge, again, objection to the way he's stating this. There's no evidence of mishandling of evidence or
And again,
tampering.
In any event, we're going to, members of the jury, remember this is closing argument, all right? And it's based upon the evidentiary record, and we're limited to the evidence, both sides, that is in the trial. Not beyond that, so Mr. Tucker can certainly make arguments pertaining to the evidence in the trial.
Okay.
In terms of rulings that the judge made, that's really not for jurors' consideration. So.
And, Your Honor, I would just submit that even by saying what he just said, it's again, you're going beyond stuff that's been admitted into the trial.
Well, but in any event,
But
just
I'll
continue with
watch
your
myself.
argument.
I'll watch myself. Again, let's go back to this. Okay, same clothes. Then the hoodie thing. Travis Johnson never mentions that once. I don't think anywhere in his testimony he ever talks about a hoodie. Hoodie, was it a hoodie thing with a hoodie mask or anything like that? Where that actually comes from is from Paula Belmont's, her testimony. That is there. I don't remember Travis Johnson ever once talking about a hoodie. But he does talk about a neck gaiter. He does talk about that. And the neck gaiter thing, okay, he submits that, it's good for covering up a beard, all this other stuff. It's like, okay, it's also good for covering a face. That's it, right? And you would think, out of all these witnesses we've had, right? Some of them you heard, some of them you haven't, but the ones that you've even heard here, okay, if you have a neck gaiter covering up your face with Jägermeister written all over it, you think somebody probably would have said that. Somebody would have identified that, right? But does anybody? No. They identify it as two skull masks. They identify it as a hoodie thing, depending on which way, what angle I guess they saw them from. I can't say, but I can say this. You would think that, Jägermeister all over your face would probably be something you could identify, I would think. Then we go back to this. It's like, okay, yeah, loves the word corroborated. That was one. I couldn't believe corroborated. There's nothing corroborated here. Then he goes into the masks that, that Travis describes in the video. And again, that's not attributed to me at all. That is attributed to Rory Wilson again. Yes, Rory Wilson apparently wore this skull mask or demon mask, whatever you want to call. Yes, it's fearsome. It's nasty. I'm not going to say it's not. I've seen it. But at the same time, it's not something that's saying I'm wearing. It has nothing to do with it, right? So, okay, then you've got the knife. Again, going back to that. Travis had a nice knife collection. I can't testify as far as for Travis, but what I can say is he could describe that knife in great detail, down to ball bearings in it. Yet, it's supposed to be my knife. Now, if it's my knife, how do you get in such great detail? I just, again, it doesn't make sense as far as that goes. I mean, the guy, he sits there and he can describe every little detail of this knife, but he's going to try and say it's mine. I can't do that. I couldn't do it back then. I can't do it now. So, again, I don't understand that. Let's see. We got into the, Travis saying that Rory was with that mask, but then he tries to attribute it to me. Knife, great detail. Okay. And, hold on a second. Oh, no, we got that one too. Okay, so, he also makes a big point to talk about what they don't know. What they don't know, right? Okay, which seems to be a lot, right? Again, you look at all the evidence in this case. I can go down the witnesses. I can go down all the evidence in this case. There's not a single thing that says I did anything other than Travis Johnson. That's it, right? And Danielle Malone, based on Travis Johnson, right? She admits that on the stand. Her story comes from Travis Johnson. Okay, well, again, talk about credibility-wise. And, he did try and say that Travis threw out my name without being told by Captain Phelps. That's not true either. If you watch that video when you go back in there, that's not true. What she does is says, if I remember correctly, It's, we all know who the asshole in this story is, right? You know, again, and then he replies back, is it Ty? That's not him coming out and saying, Ty did, you know, Ty's the one who did it. That would be a strong statement. That would be, okay, Ty did it. You know, no. Is it Ty? Because he's looking to please Captain Phelps. Now, that's another thing. I did put in the whole Captain Phelps video with Travis, right? So I could show you where that whole getaway driver story came from. She literally tells him the entire story. He parrots it back. He literally, all he says is, yeah, that's what happened, right? Now, the details after that, of course he knows the details. He was there. He can go ahead and draw a map. He can go ahead and tell you, man, oh, there's two guys getting out. And he can tell you all that stuff. Why? He's there. That's simple. You know, I mean, again, nothing that says I was there. It just says he was there, right? So, okay, you got that. And, you know, the whole parroting back thing, yes, there are things in that, and I knew when I put that video on there. Yes, there's some testimony in there that makes me sound horrible. But again, when you listen to, okay, you listen to that testimony, but you, okay, April Walker, she's not here to testify. There's a good reason why. Captain Phelps, who headed the investigation, right? Headed the investigation, the one that's in that video. She's not here to testify. There's a good reason why.
Violation of Halliburton
Okay, I'll sustain the
and
objection.
ask for a curative.
Well, you're going to have to approach and members of the jury, please disregard any mention of Penny Phelps not being here to testify in this trial. Okay, you can continue.
Okay. We go back to Roger Roget. You know, prosecutor again comes up and he wants to say that, you know, I did like this and I go like this. It's Roger Roget, you know, he's talking about the height of the person who actually attacked him, right? Well, unfortunately for the prosecution, Travis is pretty close to the same height as I am, almost, you know, pretty close. And yes, I don't think Roger Roget, you know, again, I think he is a credible witness. I don't think he's lying one bit, you know. And when I asked him if he knew my name, I asked him that because, okay, in the report that they used to get me here, yes, it says specifically that Roger Roget said, you know, said I, within my name, did this. Roger Roget said he didn't say that, right? He didn't say that, but that was what was in the report.
Objection, Judge. The fact's not in evidence.
Okay. I believe there was some examination of that report, so I'll overrule the objection.
And yes, the report was also used by Danielle Malone when she gave her testimony. So, you know, when she was doing the video. And we go back to Danielle Malone. Now, again, we could probably go all day on that. But Danielle Malone, she testified she was what? The fourth investigator down on the hierarchy here. And again, you heard yesterday when I asked her about Anthea Clay, right? And in their own words, yes, Anthea Clay was a suspect. Anthea Clay was never tried to be apprehended. You know, they tried to. Matter of fact, again, you know, we asked plenty of times about Anthea Clay, but you know, again, we find her, what, 2 years later? Guess where she is? 2 doors down from the crime where she was.
Judge.
Okay, I'll sustain that
not
objection.
evidence.
Okay.
I will sustain the objection. Your deliberations and the argument are limited to the evidence that was presented.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Well, in the evidence presented, you saw the video with Paula Belmont in the hospital. And yes, Paula did change her story many times. You know, she won't deny that. You know, there were different reasons for that because Paula Belmont did testify in the perpetuated testimony that her discussions with Detective Pitcher over and over again, Yeah, there was a time she questioned whether or not I did it. And that's understandable when the police are telling you that. She testifies to that in that perpetuated testimony. So yes, she does waver on her testimony. And then the video we saw yesterday at the hospital, this woman, okay, she had just gone through this crime. Just gone through this crime, right? And she's being questioned in the hospital. And yeah, I mean, there's some things she's saying in there that definitely could be misconstrued. I mean, when I played that one in the very beginning, it almost makes it sound like she's saying Todd is dead, which Todd was the guy who goes and runs up the hill and, gets the 911 caller, but it makes it sound that way, right? But the one thing she is very clear about, she's very clear about this. Anna did this. Anna is the one who set this up. Anna is the one who wanted me beat up. She tried to do it with other people. It's Melissa Damas. She tried to do it with Crystal Dinklocker. Literally tried to set this crime up with other people, right? But yet she doesn't rise to the level of a suspect. Now, I know I'm not allowed to talk about, the investigation or anything like that. But, again, you got to question, okay, this is a homicide detective, right? She's supposed to be investigating this crime, and yet that doesn't rise to the level of a suspect. So that is questionable. Again, her testimony as an expert, not expert, it's her experience and her training is what she says. Due to my experience and my training, I can identify this in this video. When we played the video for you guys, you can't see anything in there. You can't see anything except shadows, and you can't identify a single person in there. Yet they want to say it corroborates Travis's story. Okay, yes, Travis drove the truck there. I believe that all day. Yes, I believe that they probably went around, once, trying to case the joint, trying to figure out, if there's anybody watching, whatever, But I also believe Travis and Rory got out of that truck. And I believe Travis went and committed this crime. Now, Travis, yeah, when I did my cross on Travis, you saw how he went from being the sweet, innocent, getaway driver to, again, he was highly agitated. I guess that's the best way I could put it. But again, I was a little nervous there for a second. I'm not gonna lie. But the thing is okay. So again, his story changes and vacillates, which that was another one. The whole vacillating thing. We went through that, and I actually asked him specifically. I was like, okay, does that mean you're not telling the truth? Does that mean you're lying? Is that a fancy way of saying it? I actually had to look up what the word meant. I didn't even know. But yet, the prosecutor and Travis both use this word repeatedly. Vacillating. Oh, I was vacillating. You were vacillating. Okay. It's a fancy word for saying lying, right? And he. I'm
going to overrule the objection.
And he admits it the next day when he comes in to finish his testimony. He comes back here, and immediately, when Mr. Mansfield puts him on redirect, he comes back and he says, were you not telling the truth? And he finally says it. He finally says, no, I wasn't telling the truth to begin with. He wasn't. That's true. He wasn't telling the truth. I think you guys can figure that out. I don't need to tell you what, the difference between vacillating and lying. You can figure that out for yourselves. But no, he did not tell the truth when he first got in there, right? Hasn't told the truth since. But he wants you to believe him now. Now he's credible, right? Now he's credible. But again, you're talking about the deal again. This man is getting off a life sentence. He's getting out of his part of this crime, by saying that I did this. That's what it boils down to. He's trading my life for his. And yeah, he got a hell of a deal, 5 years. That's what he got, the time he did in jail. And all he has to do is testify against me. Now, again, I get up there, I tell my story. You may not like me. You may not like my lifestyle, anything like that, anything like that. But it doesn't mean I did this, and I got out there and I told the truth. Told it, as I can remember, as much as I can remember the truth, and as much as I'm allowed to tell, because I'm not allowed to say everything. I wish I could. But no, I get up there and I tell my story, and Mr. Mansfield comes up here, and if you look at the questions he asked me, were they about the crime? They weren't about the crime. He pulls out a picture of me with my beard. Look at this guy. Oh, he was staying at Cott's. Like that makes me, you know, that makes me a murderer because I'm staying at Cots? How does that play into it? He asked me all these questions that none of them really have anything to do about the crime. It's literally trying to, again, you know, I look, you know, a certain way, I live a certain way, or I live someplace. You know, again, what's that have to do with anything? Other than trying to confuse you to the facts. The facts are pretty simple, you know. He even says, everything says two people. Everything. Everything in this crime, it says two people except Travis. That's it. And if I'm Travis, yeah. And Captain Phelps goes ahead and tells me, you know, this story. Let me tell you a story, because you're the driver, and you know, picked them up, you drove them down there. You know, they got out, they did this. Yeah, and you're right. He didn't know about felony murder when he's given this story. He's fully believing that Captain Phelps is going to take care of him. That Captain Phelps is going to make sure that he doesn't get charges on this crime. That's what he's believing. That's true. But again, you know, he doesn't know about felony murder. So now he's tagged with that, right? Well, now the only way to get out of that is to give you somebody else. You know, that's it. And, you know, and I am upset. I am very upset. I can't tell you how much. It's cost me 6 years so far. You know, anyway, so let's see. We're going back to Paula's testimony. We went for the consistency on that. Again, when she's in the hospital, she's in a state of, you know, again, she's just gone through this horrible crime. She just saw her friend get killed. And yeah, we don't know if she's on medications. We don't know anything about it other than, yes, she says one thing, and, you know, at this time she says something else when she gets, again, a chance to think about it. You know, actually calm down. You know, maybe not be on meds. You know, and actually think about things. You know, Mr. Mansfield, again, you want to talk about bringing up things that don't mean anything. Okay, yes, Paula and I become friends, and yes, she takes a trip to California, and you allude to her lifestyle, but she was staying at Cots or something like that. But now, but then tries to throw in the fact that I have a wealthy wife. What's that have to do with anything? You know, has nothing to do with anything. You know, but yeah, he's going to throw that in there. You know, I mean, again, this whole corroborates thing. What corroborates Travis's story? That's what you got to look back at. What really does, other than his own testimony? You know, other than the police he told, right? He told his story to the police. Now, whether or not they wanted to believe it, that's up to them. You know, but at the same time, it's the only thing they're using against me. That's it. And when he had his chance, he has me up on the stand. He can ask me anything he wants. And yet, not one thing proved I was lying. Not one. And then he asked me again, you know, going back to the police station, did you tell the same story 6 years ago? Yes, I did. My story hasn't changed. Unlike Mr. Mansfield said, Travis's story hasn't changed the whole time. But I watched it change on the stand. Literally, it went from one day it was this, and the next day it's that. But mine hasn't changed over 6 years. And I haven't taken a deal. I haven't taken a deal to do anything, because, again...
Objection, Judge, and proper argument.
Okay.
I'll sustain the objection.
All right, let's see. You know, okay, and that's the other one. Travis says he goes to get cigarettes on the video for Florida Keys Electric. Who's to say that's true? Who says that's true? Because me personally, you know what I want to, you know what I would actually submit? Again, if he just committed this crime with Roy Wilson, he's going to go up to, to the Tom Thumb to get cigarettes? Or is he going up there to check out what happened and where Rory is? You know, because, I mean, he left Rory behind, supposedly, right? Well, wouldn't you kind of wonder what happened if you were him? Wouldn't you want to go check it out? Make sure that, you know, did Rory get busted by the police? Is he going to be talking? Who knows? I don't know. I know he came back with Rory Wilson. I do know that. I know they don't have me on video doing anything, not a single thing, right? No physical evidence, right? So there's no physical evidence putting me there. There is no video evidence putting me there. There is no forensics evidence putting me there. Nothing puts me there committing this crime. right? Nothing actually puts me even, again, if you want to talk about, the definition, I looked up the definitions, that we have for, felony murder and all, and the other charges. I don't even have to be there, right? But okay, what's to say I had anything to do with it, even if I wasn't there? There's nothing saying I actually, sat here and conspired with those guys. No, it says that at all, right? And again, for as much as Mr. Mansfield doesn't like my story, he hasn't shown anything that says it's wrong. So, okay, and when you talk about who's going to be believable, yes, and okay, Paula Belmont, yes, she does eventually realize that again, that voice did not match mine, and it may have been because we became friends. I don't know, right? I really don't. I'm not her. I can't tell you that, but I do know that yes, she realizes that that was not the same voice she heard, right? Okay, like I said, I can't speak for her. As far as as far as Paula's friendship and my friendship, I told you yesterday on the stand how that happened. And yeah, when I couldn't talk to her and she was telling that stuff to the press, you don't think it sat there? And I mean, I'm looking at this woman and I'm like, she doesn't owe me a thing, not one thing, and she's up there telling the media this stuff. And yeah, it was hard to sit there and watch that and not be able to talk to her. And you want to know the first thing I said to her? First thing I said to her is, "You're an idiot." That's what I told her.
Objection, Judge. Facts, not
All right,
evidence.
we'll sustain the objection.
Anyway, so to suggest that Paula has any motives other than, again, trying to give what she knows about this crime. Matt was her friend, too. Now, I'm not her only friend. Matt was her friend for a very long time. And if she thought I had anything to do with it, she did testify to this. What was the words? I could burn in hell like the other two. Yeah. She's, so no. The thought that she would actually be in that picture with me, making funny faces at the hospital. Do you really think she would be doing that if she thought I had something to do with this? It's like, it's insane. And maybe that's why I am so angry. It's like, it is insane. To think that, I go through 6 years and this is what they bring you. And this could be anybody. It doesn't matter. I just happen to be the guy. I happen to be the guy that's the one they want, right? Okay? And it's, we can get this guy to say he did it. Okay? I don't even see the logic in that. If you've got, going back to the backpack, he saw me running down the street with this backpack, and I got things fumbling out of it and all that other stuff. Am I found with the backpack? No. He comes up with a story about, how it mysteriously ends up in his trunk, but he never tells you anything other than that. He doesn't say I put it there, and sure enough, again, I didn't. He says I helped him, but there's nobody who saw that either, right? Nobody can prove that. Nobody was there to see it, but that's what he says, so it must be true, right? No, actually what is true, though, is he had that backpack up in Big Pine. And yes, it was part of the crime. And according to, again, Danielle Malone, it was not just thrown into a closet. It was actually placed up underneath of an air conditioner, right? Not like you just threw it in there. It meant more like you meant to hide it. Now, again, because Travis tries to say, I'm the one, right? I'm the one who had it. No, I'm not. And I keep on going through all these things that he says corroborates this stuff. I'm sorry, bless you. And then, okay, he says he wasn't shown those videos. He wasn't shown the Cosme videos until after his confession, right? Or he wasn't shown until after his confession. Yeah, it's true. He gave a confession, but he doesn't actually talk about the different things in the videos until after they show it to him. He confesses he was there. He takes, I'm the getaway driver. Yes, just what you said, Captain Phelps, I'm there. I'm the getaway driver. He says that he confesses to. But he doesn't give the details until after he sees the videos. That's what happens after that. Because, there's a difference between the confession and the videos. So, okay, then we go back to the vacillated thing. We already covered that. And let's see. Oh, that was another one. Paula. You know, the prosecutor liked using Paula's statements when he wants you to believe they're true. But then he, you know, again, when they're about me, when they actually have something to say about me, then they're not true, right? So it's only true if it backs up the prosecutor's story, not mine, right? But I will say this, is Paula did say that she wasn't sure, but Travis could have been the guy who was with Rory Wilson earlier that day when they came over in the afternoon. She says that. And she wasn't sure. She didn't know Travis. I mean, now that part everybody agrees to. And could she identify, positively identify him? Not at that time, right? But she does say that it could have been, Travis. So yeah, Travis may have been at the Treehouse earlier than the prosecutor suggests. Then we go back to, let's see, and you got to forgive me. I am not as polished as the prosecutor. I'm not a lawyer. I think we did this when we did Boy Dyer. I'm not a very good, I'm not the best public speaker or anything like that. But I did come here, and yeah, I thought it was important that you see me for me. I don't know, I don't know if that's smart or not. I do know it was very frustrating at times, and I apologize for that. I'm not the best. And but we're almost at the end here, guys, as far as things go. Yeah, we already did this as far as I haven't been able to tell you the whole story, and that kind of
Objection, Judge, to this line of questioning.
it's not questioning, and
Sustain the objection to that
Okay.
argument.
Well, I would suggest this, that yes, as we can see, I don't want it to seem like I'm being untruthful just because I can't say something.
Objection, Judge, improper bolstering.
I will sustain the objection.
Okay. Okay. We got the Paula says the knife is Rogers, and yeah, again, it's hard for me because he wants to talk about my conversation with Paula.
Improper argument, objection.
Well, I believe he's referring to the McDonald's.
Yes, I was.
Okay, so we'll overrule the objection, so just go ahead.
Anyway, I was talking about that, and going back to that, again, the prosecutor submits to you, there's no way I could have known whether or not Matt's blood, whether it was Matt's blood, Paula's blood, whoever's blood on the knife. But again, I was there for, I don't know, it was a long time, being interrogated all night. That's all I can say. I was there for a long time. And yes, I came into contact with people who knew things that I don't. So submitting to you that there's no other way I could have known that is very misleading. And that's what look, when you guys go back there, I do think we made a great choice as far as the jury. I do. We've tried to find people who are going to look at this and look at the evidence. And when you go back there and you look at the evidence, don't believe my words, don't believe his words, I guess. Look at the evidence and see what it says. The evidence in this case, I'm not, maybe, again, you don't have to like me. You don't have to think I'm, I don't even, you may think I'm the biggest.
Objection, Judge,
whatever.
to the pandering.
Well, I'm going to overrule the objection.
Anyway, what I'm asking you to do is just look at the evidence. That's it. Look at what it says. And if it says that, I did something, if you think that, man, I did something based on that evidence, okay, fine. But if you're going to, again, I look at it now and I'm like, really? It comes down to whether or not you believe Travis. That's what it comes down to. And whether or not you believe me, I don't know. I'm not going to tell you what to think. This whole corroborating thing, that's for you to decide. It really is. Do you think that evidence actually says I did something? If you don't think it did, then man, I would submit that's reasonable doubt. I don't see where there isn't reasonable doubt in here, but that's not for me to decide. I know what I did that day. I know what I didn't do that day. You guys don't. So I'm gonna have to trust you. You know, I'm gonna have to trust that you're gonna look at the evidence, you're gonna look at the videos, you're gonna look at all this stuff. And then you're gonna decide. I mean, you know, I can't tell you what to think. You know, but what I can tell you is, I can tell you that it's not as the state would suggest. You know, state, they say they've made their case, they proved every element of their case. How is that proof? How's one man's word against another? How's that proof? You know, so I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm not going to give you a whole big slick speech, but one of the things when I was talking about the lawyers and whether or not I needed lawyers, and maybe I did, I don't know, but I'll tell you this. I felt the truth doesn't.
Objection, Judge.
Overrule the objection.
I felt like
Sidebar?
Yes.
Anyway, back to that. Look, I told the truth. I gave you guys everything everything you could need as far as what they want to bring. You know, I didn't object very much. It didn't stop them from putting things in.
Your voice up, Mr. Tucker.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's a
So again, I gave you as much as the prosecution wanted to show, right? And while I didn't put on the defense I wanted to, I didn't. But there are reasons for that too, and I can't talk about them either. But here's the one thing, and I'm going to leave this at that. You know, I'm not going to sit up here and go through everything again and just rehash this stuff. What I am going to tell you is that Mr. Mansfield said, "Don't be afraid to find me guilty." Right? Don't be afraid of it. And what I would submit is that you should be afraid not to find me guilty. That part, no. But you should be afraid that, man, any single one of you could be right where I am.
Objection, Judge. Golden rule violation.
I'll sustain that objection. But
Well, apparently I need to study up on my closing arguments, but I think you guys got the point. There's no evidence in this thing. We've already talked about that. Every single witness they brought, not a single one says anything other than Travis or Danielle Malone, who is basing it off Travis. So, Paula, you can believe Paula or not believe Paula. That's up to you. I mean, again, I can't tell you what to think. I can tell you that, yes, she did vacillate, to use the prosecutor's word, between different time periods, and there's reasons for that. You know, it's not like this whole thing hasn't had things that have happened in between, right? But anyway, I am trusting that you're going to go back there and you're going to look at the evidence and base it on the evidence like we talked about. You know, and I did tell you at the very beginning when we did Boy Dyer, I was like, there's this presumption of guilt, and now people have a tendency to think you're guilty, right off the rap, and yeah, the presumption of innocence is hard. It really is. But did the prosecutor prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt? I don't think so. I don't think there's any way they proved it beyond a reasonable doubt. Other than that, say? I think you know how I'd probably be feeling right now, but the best I got is, yeah, we put on a case, and they put on a case, and all I'd say is all that showing, all that thing you see, someone's putting it up in PowerPoint, not a single thing that was up there couldn't be explained by Travis being the guy who was there. That's it. Simple. It made it very complicated putting me into this thing. But now, two people, yeah, it's real simple. That's what the evidence says. It says two. All the witnesses say that. All the evidence says that. So it's up to you guys to decide. I'd just like to thank you for taking the time, and for listening and for paying attention, and seeing what this is. But at that point, I don't think I have anything to add. I wasn't coming up here with a speech. I just was going to come up here and discuss what happened. Anyway, I thank you for your time, and like I said, I hope you guys can just go back there, look at the evidence, and look at it for what it is. See it for what it is. But other than that, thank you for putting up with me. Putting up with this. But yeah, I think I'll go ahead and let you guys decide. So, thank you.
So the state has an opportunity to make a rebuttal argument. You have up to,
Can we just have a 5-minute break before we start?
I don't really think so. I think, we have 28 minutes that is max that you have, so.
Thank you, Judge. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'd like to thank you for your patience and courtesy and attention during the course of this trial. Your participation in this process is both important to the state of Florida and to also Mr. Tucker. Now, my colleague, Mr. Mansfield, said, the devil is in the details, and I'm going to stress that fact and just highlight a couple of different things to rebut some of the things that Mr. Tucker tried to represent to you. I would submit to you respectfully, there's a big difference between not being able to ID a second guy and years later saying it wasn't Mr. Tucker that was involved. There's a huge difference in that. The judge at the end of this case is going to give you some instructions, and one of those instructions deals with weighing the evidence. He's going to tell you it is up to you to decide what evidence is reliable. You should utilize your common sense in determining which evidence is the best evidence and which evidence should not be relied upon. Again, the devil is in the details. What is the motive for Travis Johnson to come onto this witness stand and point the finger at this defendant, Mr. Tucker? Mr. Tucker's correct. Travis Johnson was there. Travis Johnson owned up to this robbery that went bad, that turned into a murder that resulted in the death of Matthew Reed Bonnet. Travis Johnson's statement has been consistent since 2017. Travis Johnson also told you this defendant was involved in this case. That is uncontested. Again, devil in the details. Anethea Clay. This defendant, Mr. Tucker, keeps stating Anethea Clay. She's a murder suspect. They never investigated. Deputy Malone, on the other hand, said she was a person of interest. We never had enough corroborating evidence to go and put her or place her or involve her in this crime. Devil in the details. Let's talk about the motive for Travis Johnson. He didn't have a motive. He had no bad blood with this defendant. They used to hang out. They used to drink together, do crack cocaine together, smoke marijuana together. However, the defendant states, my colleague, Mr. Mansfield, never impeached me one time. Well, I would submit to you respectfully that he did get impeached. Okay? The defendant was asked from the witness stand, Travis Johnson, Mr. Johnson, go ask Mr. Johnson. He told the police, actually the sheriff's department, go ask Mr. Johnson, he'll back up my story. Did Mr. Johnson back up his story? As a matter of fact, this defendant from the witness stand specifically stated that he was upset with Travis Johnson because he didn't back him up. Devil's in the detail. Paula Belmonte, that's a tough job that you have once you go back there. Many different statements from 2017 to the present. Couldn't ID the defendant. Only saw him from the side of his face. Don't know if it was him. Not Travis. Not sure if it was Travis Johnson, but I know definitely it was not Tyrone Tucker. Okay, well, I'm here to submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, the most damaging piece of evidence in this case is the conversation that Paula Belmonte testified to or was read into the record by Mr. Mansfield. And that is the conversation that she had with this defendant at the McDonald's the day after he was interviewed by the Sheriff's Department. They sat at the McDonald's and ran into each other by chance after he walked from the Sheriff's Department with slides on that were given to him. Runs into Paula. He went there, remembered to use the Wi-Fi. He runs into Paula. They start talking about the crime. Paula tells him what's happening, and he's feeling really, really bad for her. But he informs her, hey, the Sheriff's Department found the knife, or they found the knife, and she was really happy to hear that. And she stated, oh my God, that's great. It has my blood on it. What does this defendant tell Paula Belmont? No, it had Matthew Reed Bonnet's blood on it. We know the Monroe County Sheriff's Office didn't provide that information because this defendant...
Objection.
Well, I'm going to sustain that objection because that's not facts and evidence. They can certainly make an inference, but to suggest absolutely that's the case.
Restate. We know for a fact that it was proven on this defendant's examination of Angela Oslowski that the DNA results on the knife did not come back until months after that meeting in McDonald's. So I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
I will overrule that objection. That was within my previous ruling. The last argument stayed within, so I'll overrule that objection.
Again, devil in the details, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. How would this defendant know to tell Ms. Belmonte whose blood was on that knife? I would submit to you, using your common sense, as the judge is going to instruct you in a minute, it was because he was there. It was because...
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can we come sidebar?
Permission to proceed, Your Honor.
Yes.
Again, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, devil's in the detail. Your common sense has to beg the question, how did Mr. Tucker know that Mr. Bonnet's blood was on the knife? I would submit to you, utilizing your common sense and your life experiences, because he was there. Either he stabbed Mr. Bonnet, and at the very least, he participated in this crime. That's the only way, deducing this evidence, that he could have made that statement to Ms. Belmont the day after he was not taken into custody by the Sheriff's Department. Now, Travis Johnson, let's talk about Travis Johnson. His statements in this case, his confession in this case, to the participation in this robbery and this murder were made literally years before he ever struck a deal with the state of Florida. Okay, and I think it's very important to note, as my colleague highlighted, okay, he made a confession and then was shown the corroborating videos. He wasn't provided the details of what happened. He filled in the blanks, as Mr. Mansfield highlighted. He gave a statement in November of 2017, and that deal that he struck with the state of Florida was not entered into until April of 2022. No evidence whatsoever has come from that witness stand that indicates that the Sheriff's Department or any other law enforcement gave him any information in this case. I know we talked about this on jury selection, and I know Mr. Mansfield went over it quite at length. It's, sometimes in these cases, it's not about the quantity of evidence, but the quality of the evidence. The evidence that comes from in the form of testimony from that witness stand and the corroborating exhibits of evidence that you have seen and can still have an opportunity to review if you choose to do so. Judge, may I have a moment?
Yes.
The defendant in this case, during his closing statement, asked you not to believe the statements that the state played for you at the hospital the night of the incident. She may have been under the influence of narcotics. Maybe her memory wasn't clear. I would submit to you, using your common sense, her memory would have been more accurate closer to the event than years later. If you really look at all her statements throughout the life of this case, through the life of these crimes, it has been consistent, but for, at the end, she says it wasn't Ty Tucker. At the end, she never said that in any of her other previous statements. Again, the devils are in the detail. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I would submit to you the details in this case point to Franklin Tyrone Tucker as a person who robbed, murdered, or at least participated in the crimes that you've heard here. And I would submit to you, when you get the instructions of law from this judge and you utilize your common sense in weighing the evidence and evaluating the evidence in this case, you will have one verdict and one verdict only, and that verdict will be guilty as charged. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, members of the jury, for your attention throughout our a little bit longer than usual morning session. But as I explained to you earlier, I thought it important for you to be able to hear the closings from everyone uninterrupted, which we've now accomplished. And I'm going to give you a lunch break until 2 o'clock. All the usual instructions that I've given throughout, they still apply. I'm going to spend a little more time with the lawyers during that hour and 15 minutes which intervene. But when you come back, you're going to receive the closing instructions from the court, whereupon you can begin your deliberation. So enjoy your lunch, 2 o'clock, and we'll go from there. Okay, the jurors are gone, so I believe our understanding was that over the lunch that the state was going to make the changes to the jury instructions that we discussed during the charge conference. So that would mean to me that we need to get here, what, 20 minutes, 15, I don't know how long it's going to take you to do this, and I don't want to create unnecessary time pressure.
Judge, I don't think that it's going to take that long. I gave the corrections to Ms. Malcolm. She's already been working on them. I think I just have to draft up the ag assault and the pro se instruction for that.
So if we come back at 1:45, that ought to give us 15 minutes to review.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and we'll have packets for
the court and one for Mr. Tucker. Yes, sir.
All right, so we'll be back at 1:45.
And when they were inside the bag when you first saw them?
They were just as they appeared on the floor. They were flat.
They weren't folded or anything like that?
No,
Were they stapled or taped together?
no,
Or were they next to each other?
no. They were stacked on top of each other.
Did you make a decision to seize those as evidence that day?
I did.
Did you give it an evidence number?
I did, 158.
And when you seize something for evidence, or what's your process of doing that?
So I will, once a decision has been made to seize it, I'll give it an evidence number, mark it appropriately, like either with these yellow plastic placards or with those adhesive evidence rulers. I'll notify both photographers, both the backup and the primary. They will come photograph the item. And then once it's been photographed and it's been documented in notes, I will package it appropriately, seal it, and label it.
Why did you seize this item?
I'm going to object.
Well, the obvious answer is it was of some evidentiary value. So the court will allow the question.
Why did you seize that item, sir?
Because it was labeled on top.
I'm going to object to him characterizing. I thought he was going to answer as Your Honor suggested.
What the court wants to try to avoid at this point is a description of the content of the documents.
That's fine, Your Honor. I could withdraw that if I may just approach with.
Yes.
Thank you. Your Honor, State 74, I don't believe there's an objection if I may just approach to it.
Thank you.
Sir, if you can take a look, what is that document? Or what is contained in State 74, I should.
This is the evidence envelope I used to package the 3 photocopies.
Your Honor, at this time, the state's intention is to ask the court to allow it to open and publish using Elmo, reading it to the jury. Perhaps we should do that after lunch.
Well, they have to be offered, correct?
There's no objection.
There is no objection.
No objection to the admission.
Thank you. Do you wish to do that now?
It's going to take a while.
Well, better to start at 2 o'clock.
Thank you. I may have that back, sir.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take our lunch and recess. We plan to resume at 2 o'clock. Please do not discuss the case. Have a good lunch.
All rise. This honorable Superior Court now stands in recess. You can exit the courtroom.
Would counsel approach, please?
Are we off the record?
Yes, off. Thank you.
You letting go? It hurt your wrist when I said that?
Yeah, like, I'll figure it out.
Okay, so I'm back when I said I was gonna be. So we have the instructions, or?
We don't, Judge. I just talked to them. They had some glitches, but I guess they're done now. They're printing them out, and they said they'd be over within the next 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay, well, not much I can do about it. Then when we get them, I'll have to review them, but, okay, I'll come back at 2 unless they're here sooner, let me know. Thank you. Okay, so we're back on the record. So the modifications took longer than anticipated.
Judge, I think we're gonna, well, I think when we review them together, we probably may have a couple more modifications, but I'm having the deputy, the bailiff, blast copies, because I ran out because I didn't want to be late, and he's doing the favor, the courtesy of blasting copies for Mr. Tucker and for Your Honor.
Okay, well, that's too bad because I hate to start deliberations too late. I really have never liked that. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but I was thinking we'd start at like 2, maybe the instructions take 45 minutes. Jurors start deliberating at 3, that's reasonable. If we gotta spend a lot more time fine-tuning these instructions, we're gonna start deliberations later and later, which only means the potential to be here later or to carry over till tomorrow becomes more possible. But, so what, the bailiff is making copies now?
Judge, the other option the court would have, I don't know how the court feels about it, send the jury home and we'll start fresh tomorrow morning.
Well, I'm not necessarily adverse to that, with a couple of caveats. I do have that docket tomorrow morning, the arraignments, and there might be something else special set and motion calendar, so that goes from 8:45 to... Oh, you're right, we have inmate plea.
Yeah, no arraignment.
Oh, the arraignments are Friday.
No, the following.
Oh, okay, excuse me. Okay, well, that's then more flexible. If we've got inmate plea, that actually would enable me to just, set those cases back, let's say an hour, and unless we instruct the jury now and start deliberations tomorrow, or you instruct the jury tomorrow and start deliberations, or we just forge ahead. I'm happy to consider any of those options.
Given the importance, and again, I apologize to the court, Your Honor, given the importance of the accuracy of the instructions, it would be the state's preference to send the jury home for the evening, and let's have a charge conference, and let's agree on what the actual instructions, any further changes, and I will come in with a perfect copy of instructions in the morning. We can instruct the jury and then have them deliberate after your morning session.
Or a perfect copy later this afternoon.
Perfect copy later this afternoon.
And so what's your input on this question, Mr. Tucker?
I would like, again, you're talking about it is very important. The jury instructions are very important. And if the state feels they want to add things to what we already have, yeah, I'm going to want to take a look at that. And we're going to have to go over that. And I would agree with the state at this point.
Well, okay, that's reasonable. Here is...
It's going to take some work, Your Honor. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I know, I understand. Here's what I try to avoid. We've spent, what, the better part, well, now it's 2.5 weeks, let's just say. Now, if we go over these and make some modifications, and I give them, maybe the jury goes out at 3:30. So it's already 2/3, 3/4 of the day, and then we're going to ask these people to deliberate over the dinner time. To me, that's not ideal. It's more ideal to give them a fresh start. They have the whole day in front of them, basically, and there's not that same pressure of time and fatigue. I would
agree, Your Honor, because, look, considering it's, it definitely involves my life here. I don't want them rushing to make a judgment just because they want, because they're here late. I don't want them to do that. So
Neither do I.
I would agree. That's what I'm saying.
And to the extent that we can manage things to avoid that, I'm all in favor of it. So I think and I understand the state would be in favor of that also. They come in, I once again apologize, explain my thinking and reasoning, and tell them to come back 9 a.m. tomorrow. In the meantime, I will just have my office communicate with the attorneys who are representing the defendants who have inmate plea tomorrow. I can either set it off to the afternoon or put it on start at 10 o'clock, and we'll instruct the jurors tomorrow morning, and they can deliberate all they need. Okay. They're in the jury room? If you ask them to come in, please. Thank you. Please be seated, members of the jury. Welcome back to the courtroom. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. We had a full session this morning with the closing arguments, and I laid out for you what I, in good faith, believed was a feasible and prudent schedule. Unfortunately, I'm going to change that schedule. And I don't even know if I should say unfortunately, other than I don't like to say things and not carry through, but sometimes circumstances dictate such. As I explained, the next step is going to be to give you the law that's instructing the jury. After that, you would start your deliberations. Looking at the instructions and what remains to get them in proper order, I don't believe that you would start your deliberations till anywhere 3:30, 4 o'clock. And I think that's too late. I don't think that's the best way to have you start jury deliberations. We've been here for, 2.5 weeks now? You've received a large quantity of evidence. You've heard arguments, and so for me to say, okay, members of the jury, start your deliberations at 4 o'clock after this day and then bump into meal time, I don't think that's the ideal way to do it. I did indicate that we have time. This is one of the reasons that we slated the necessary time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to come back at 9 tomorrow. We will, at that point, give you the instructions, and then you will be able to start your deliberations, I won't say early morning, but mid-morning, and have however long you need. So I'm sorry if I wasn't unable to stick to what I originally thought would be the way to proceed, but I'm satisfied this is the better way to do it. So apologize for any inconvenience. thank you for your attention, your flexibility, your patience, your understanding. So, you,
You're wondering if maybe came back tomorrow.
the alternate, is that, yes, you know, again, I appreciate everybody's service, including the alternate service, and it could be, I certainly hoping not, but, you know, I've seen cases where an alternate is needed right up to the 11th hour, so if there's some special circumstance other than, you know, putting in time and not being able to pursue some other important things, but I greatly appreciate your continued participation. So, folks, sorry, but we'll see you tomorrow, and I think
We appreciate it.
it's... Okay, we're going. So for the record, that was the second alternate who inquired through the bailiff, and to me, did he need to come back tomorrow? And you heard what I informed him, that yes, you know, we just never know what could happen, so so now we, does everybody have the latest revised set of jury instructions?
I did provide Mr. Tucker a set, Judge, but I'm looking through them, and they appear to be totally out of order, and I apologize to the court, Judge.
Well,
I know the
in
verdict,
all due respect, you know,
the verdict forms have been corrected.
well, did you need to go back to the drawing board? Did you need to look at these packets and get them in order? I mean, tell me what you want to do.
I would like to go back to the drawing board, Judge, and
Okay.
if you can just give me some time, and Your Honor could come back out and I'll have a correction.
But you said we might need to do more corrections. Are there some we could do now that would save a third time? Or, I don't know. I mean, but we do have time, so we don't have to, you know, rush. So tell me, you're more familiar at this point with the state of the instructions than am I.
Judge, here's what I would request respectfully. If I have my notes, the problem is I left my notes here and the courtroom's locked, and I didn't get them until like 10 minutes I was supposed to be here. If you give me an hour to go back and incorporate the notes that I took from Your Honor this morning into what I have in front of me, I think I could come back with an accurate package, Judge.
Okay.
Judge, and one other, this morning you mentioned 2.7, is that accurate?
I already gave that.
Okay.
That was the closing argument
Okay,
instruction.
just wanted to make sure I don't.
Yeah, and we don't need that. That's just, that's the one I already gave about both the state and the defense have now rested their case. You will now hear, don't worry about that.
Very well, Judge.
Okay, so, so it's 2:19, so we're talking about 3:20, is that what?
That'd be fine, Judge, and I have my laptop, I can work on them from right here.
Any problem with that, Mr. Tucker?
No, Your Honor, that's fine.
Okay. So this latest copy that I got here, this I should ignore?
Yes, sir.